There is a decision you make every single month that has already cost you thousands of dollars. You do not realize it is a decision because it feels like inaction. But in finance, inaction is a decision, and it has a very real price. I did the math on what waiting costs you, and the numbers are worse than most people realize. Let me start with a story that makes this real. I have a friend named Sarah. Sarah graduated college at 22. She got a good job. She knew she should be investing, but she kept telling herself she would start when she had more money. When she got her next raise, when she paid off her student loans, she knew the right thing to do. She just kept putting it off. She finally started investing at 30, 8 years later than she could have. And when I ran the numbers on what those 8 years cost her, the number was so large that she did not want to believe it. But the math does not care about what you want to believe. The math just is. Here's the mechanism that makes waiting so expensive. It is not just the money you did not invest during those 8 years. It is everything that money would have grown into over the rest of your life. It is the compound interest on the contributions you never made. It is the exponential growth that never had a chance to start. And exponential growth is the most powerful force in personal finance. But it has one requirement. It needs time. You cannot rush compound interest. You can only give it time to work. And every year you wait is a year of compound growth that you will never get back. Let me show you the math so you can see exactly what I mean. Imagine two women. Both are 22 years old. Both start their first job at the same time. Both earn the same salary. Both plan to retire at 65. Woman A starts investing immediately. She puts $200 a month into a low-cost index fund that earns an average of 8% per year. Woman B tells herself she will start later. She starts at age 30. She puts the same $200 a month into the same index fund with the same 8% return. Here is what happens. Woman A invests from age 22 to age 65. That is 43 years. She contributes $200 a month. That is $103,200 of her own money. But at an 8% return, her portfolio grows to roughly $938,000. Her own contributions were about $103,000. The rest is growth. Compound interest did almost 9/10 of the work. Woman B invests from age 30 to age 65. That is 35 years. She contributes the same $200 a month. That is $84,000 of her own money. At the same 8% return, her portfolio grows to roughly $458,000, less than half of what Woman A has, even though she only started 8 years later. Here's the part that hurts. Woman A contributed $103,000 of her own money. Woman B contributed $84,000. Woman A only put in $19,000 more of her own money, but she ended up with $480,000 more in her portfolio. That is not a typo. $19,000 more in contributions translated into nearly $500,000 more in total wealth, simply because she started earlier. That is the power of time in the market. Now, let me make this even more concrete. Let me show you what waiting costs in terms of real life. Woman B did not just lose $480,000. She lost options. She lost freedom. She lost years of her life that she could have chosen not to work. At age 65, Woman A has $938,000. Using the 4% rule, she can withdraw about $37,500 per year from her portfolio without touching the principal. Woman B has $458,000. She can withdraw about $18,300 per year. That is barely half. Woman A can retire comfortably. Woman B has to keep working or drastically reduce her lifestyle. Same salary, same monthly contribution. Different start date, completely different outcome. And here is the cruelest part of the math. The cost of waiting increases every single day. It is not linear. It is exponential. Every month you delay does not cost you the same amount. Each month costs you more than the last month did. Because you are not just losing that month's contribution and its future growth. You are losing the growth on all the growth that would have happened if you had started earlier. The cost accelerates. Let me show you what I mean with smaller increments. If you wait 1 year to start investing, the cost over 40 years is roughly $60,000 on that $200 monthly contribution. If you wait 5 years, the cost jumps to roughly $270,000. If you wait 10 years, the cost is roughly $430,000. If you wait until you are 40 to start, you end up with about $220,000 instead of $938,000. That is a difference of over $700,000 for doing nothing different except starting later. And here's the thing. Most people do not wait because they cannot afford to invest. They wait because they think they cannot afford it. They wait because they are spending the money on things that feel important in the moment but will not matter in 40 years. The daily coffee, the upgraded phone, the extra streaming service, the takeout on nights when you are too tired to cook. None of these things are bad on their own, but they add up. And every dollar you spend on them is a dollar that could have been in the market. Growing, compounding, building your freedom? Let me do the math on subscriptions specifically, because this is the one that gets most people. The average person in the United States spends about $219 per month on subscription services. Streaming platforms like Netflix, Hulu, Max, and Disney Plus, music subscriptions, gym memberships that never get used, meal kit deliveries, delivery service subscriptions like Uber One or Amazon Prime, software subscriptions for apps you installed once and forgot about, cloud storage you do not need because you already have space on your phone, box subscriptions for things you could buy cheaper at the store. The list goes on. Most people have between 10 and 15 active subscriptions and have no idea what they cost in total. I have seen people scroll through their bank statements and discover over $300 a month in charges they forgot they authorized. $219 per month. That is the average. If you are spending more, and many people are, the numbers get even worse. $219 per month invested at 8% over 30 years grows to about $326,000. That is not a small amount. That is a down payment on a house. That is a fully funded college education for a child. That is nearly a decade of retirement income. For subscriptions you probably do not even think about. For charges that hit your credit card every month without you ever making a conscious decision to renew them. For services you signed up for during a free trial and forgot to cancel. The counter argument I hear most often is that subscriptions are just a few dollars each. A $9 streaming service here. A $15 gym membership there. Individually, each one feels too small to matter. And that is exactly how they get you. The companies that sell subscriptions are not betting that you will notice the big charges. They are betting that the small ones will fly under your radar forever. And they are right. Because if I told you to find a way to save $326,000 over 30 years, you would think it was impossible. But you already have the mechanism. It is the $12 you spend every month on a streaming service you watched once. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Combine the subscription cost with the waiting cost. If you are 30 years old and you cancel $200 per month in subscriptions and invest it instead, you end up with about $326,000 by age 60. But if you have been telling yourself you will start investing at 35 and you cancel the subscriptions now and invest them, you do not just get the $326,000. You also avoid the cost of waiting 5 years, which is about $270,000. The combined effect is massive. This is the whole point of doing the math. You cannot see compound interest working because it happens in the background. It is invisible. Your brain is not wired to understand exponential growth intuitively. You have to actually run the numbers to see what is happening. And when you do, the case for starting today becomes overwhelming. Here is another layer that most people do not consider. The cost of waiting is not just financial. It is psychological. When you start investing early, you build the habit when the stakes are low. You learn to handle market volatility with small amounts of money before you have large amounts at risk. You train yourself to buy when the market is down instead of panicking. You develop the emotional resilience that is essential for long-term investing success. When you wait until you are 40 to start, you are trying to learn those lessons with a much larger portfolio. The mistakes cost more, the emotional swings are bigger, the learning curve is steeper. I have seen this pattern play out dozens of times with people I know. The ones who started early, even with tiny amounts, are the ones who stuck with it through the downturns. The ones who waited for the perfect moment never found it, because the perfect moment does not exist. There is always a reason to wait. The market is too high. The market is too low. The economy is uncertain. You have too much debt. You do not know enough yet. Life is too expensive right now. There will always be a reason. And if you wait for the reason to go away, you will wait forever. Let me give you a framework for thinking about this that changed everything for me. Every dollar you invest today is buying a piece of your future freedom. It is not just a number in a brokerage account. It is days of your life that you will not have to work. It is options that you will have that other people will not. It is the ability to say no to a job you hate, to take a career risk that could change your life, to help a family member in need without stressing about the cost, to retire 5 years earlier than you thought possible. Every dollar is a tiny piece of freedom. And every day you wait, you are choosing not to buy that freedom. Now, Let me address the most common objection I hear. What if the market crashes right after I start investing? This is a real fear, and it keeps a lot of people on the sidelines. But the math actually says something surprising. If the market crashes right after you start investing, that is actually good for you in the long run. Not bad, because you are buying at lower prices. Every dollar you invest during a crash buys more shares than it would have bought at the peak. When the market recovers, those shares grow more. The worst thing that can happen to a new investor is not a crash. It is a long bull market right at the beginning, because that means you are buying at high prices and you never get the benefit of buying the dip. A study by the investment company Vanguard looked at what happens to investors who start right before a crash. They found that investors who started in 2007, right before the financial crisis, and who stayed invested through the recovery actually ended up with more money by 2020 than investors who started in 2009, right after the crash. Because the 2007 investors bought shares at lower and lower prices during the downturn and then rode them back up. The 2009 investors bought at the bottom but missed the discounted prices along the way. Time in the market beats timing the market every single time. Here is what I want you to take away from all of this. The single most important financial decision you will ever make is not what you invest in. It is not how much you earn. It is not which account type you use. The single most important financial decision is when you start. Everything else is secondary. You can invest in the wrong thing and still come out ahead if you start early and stay consistent. You can pick a fund with slightly higher fees and still end up with a seven-figure portfolio if you give it enough time, but you cannot start late and outperform someone who started early, even if they make every mistake in the book. Time is the one variable you cannot manufacture. You cannot buy more of it. You cannot earn it. You cannot borrow it. You can only use it or lose it. And once it is gone forever. I want to address one more thing before we wrap up, because it is the objection I hear most often from women specifically, the feeling that you do not know enough yet to start investing. That you need to read more books, watch more videos, understand the market better, have a fully researched plan. This is perfectionism disguised as prudence, and it is one of the most common reasons women delay investing. The research shows that women are actually better investors than men on average. We trade less, we panic less, we stick to our plans, but we also tend to feel less confident about our financial knowledge, even when we know more than enough to start. You do not need to be an expert. You need to know three things: open a brokerage account, buy a low-cost total market index fund, set up automatic contributions. That is it. The rest is just noise. You will learn more by doing than you ever will by reading. And the good news is that you can start today, right now. In the next 10 minutes, you can open a brokerage account, you can set up an automatic transfer, you can buy your first share of a low-cost index fund. It does not have to be $200. It can be $20. It can be $10. Many brokerages have no minimums and no fees. The amount does not matter as much as the act of starting, because once you start, the hardest part is behind you. The habit begins, the compounding begins, the growth begins. I did the math so you would not have to. And the math is clear. The cost of waiting is the most expensive mistake in personal finance. It is more expensive than choosing the wrong investment, more expensive than paying too much in fees, more expensive than almost any financial error you can make. Because the cost of waiting is not just the money you did not invest. It is the compounded growth of that money that never had a chance to happen. And that is a cost you can never recover. Start today. Start with whatever you have. Start with an amount so small that it feels embarrassing, and then do not stop. Because the person you are in 40 years will thank you for the decision you make today. And that person will have options and freedom that they would not have had if you had waited one more day. Stay consistent, and I will see you in the next one.